So, good afternoon again. It's great to see everyone. Please note that today's webinar will be recorded, so that video can be sent around to all registrants afterwards. And please also note that we may put messages in the chat section during the webinar, so please keep this open too. Before we get started, for those of you who joined our previous episode last month, we experienced some sound issues. I'd like to say that we have made some adjustments on our side to hopefully fix those problems. If you do experience any issues, feel free to drop a message on the chat or to myself, and we'll look into what might be happening. But if you can just double check that you are all on mute as well, that will also help, just to save any background noise causing any distraction. Thank you. So today is the second episode in our series of online training events designed to help you, the healthcare professionals, achieve seating assessment mastery. So we've got a 2024 course called Mastering Seating Assessment, and this is designed to provide educational content to support occupational therapists, physiotherapists, carers, and other healthcare professionals who are involved in assessing people for specialist seating, and that's both in the community and also in multi-user healthcare environments and hospitals. So there's one episode each month, and each one will focus on how to assess people with a specific health condition or those who fall into a particular patient group. So today's episode 2, will be about seating those who fall into the paediatric group, so children and also young adults. So this is the agenda for today. We're going to be looking at the various risks and health conditions that children often live with, that should be looked for and considered when specifying seating for them. We'll discover how to support young people with proper postural and positioning solutions. We'll learn about different chair types that are available, the functionalities these can offer to help you enhance the lives of your young clients. And then this will all be brought to life at the end by Ben Sterling, our own in-house seating assessor, who will demonstrate what some of the functionalities look like using the little Lento care chair. At the end of the webinar today, we will have a live Q&A session. So please keep a note of any questions you would like to ask. You can pop these in the chat during the presentation for us to discuss at the end. Otherwise, you're welcome to unmute and ask them when we give you the prompt. Before I introduce our special guest speaker today, I would like to just give a quick overview of Vivid Care, who are hosting the webinar this afternoon. Some of you may have joined our webinars before, but for those who are joining for the first time, we have been supporting the healthcare sector for over 50 years now, previously known as Yorkshire Care Equipment, the name of which some may recognise. We're now called Vivid Care to represent the work we do both in hospitals and the community right across the UK. Our mission is to enhance lives through advancing care, and our focus is on providing specialist seating, profiling in hospital beds, moving and handling equipment such as falls prevention and patient lifting devices, and then also mobility equipment. And we really strive to equip the most complex of cases and individuals facing challenging health conditions with optimal resources and equipment to give them the best quality of life that is available to them. We're actually part of a larger group called Core Care Group. So our sister companies include Innova Care Concepts, who specialise in hoisting and installed healthcare projects. Then there's Dependal, who are third-party specialist healthcare logistics providers. And then finally, there's Aquadapt, who help with home adaptation. So without further ado, I'm extremely excited to introduce Eve Ovenden to you. Eve is going to be presenting to us today, and as a highly experienced and skilled paediatric OT. So welcome, Eve. We're glad to know a little bit about your background and experience, and look forward to your presentation. I'll just stop sharing my screen now and let you start sharing.
Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm Eve. I worked in the NHS for 20 years and then for the last 5 years worked independently. For the majority of that time, I've specialised in children with a physical disability, and seating has been a large part of what I've worked with. So I've got about 20 minutes to chat to you. I've got quite a few slides, so I'm going to whiz through and look forward to any questions later on. I've tried to pitch it to the widest group, so hopefully it will give you a good overview. So let's get started. So first I start my seating assessment with a good knowledge of the child. It's really important to know the child's diagnosis and how that may impact on their posture, both currently but also going forward, so we're future planning. I have a good look at their posture in sitting, both box sitting and on the floor, and also in lying. Having a look at both their static posture, but what range of movement they've got at different joints as well. There are standardized assessments that do this, which you can choose to use. For example, there's a new one called the CABA or the Chaley. It's also really important to get a feel of the child's tone and how that impacts on their movement patterns, both when at rest, but also when they're doing activity. And to consider things like if the child has seizures, and ensuring that they're safe in the seating at those times. Also to consider their fatigue and whether they're able to maintain that upright position, or whether they fatigue quickly and require tilting space. Skin integrity is not a huge issue with the majority of children, but it can be if they're not seated properly and they're not having a change of positions. And also some children that we work with can be a very low weight because they're putting, because of their movement patterns, they are using lots of calories. So particularly in the children that are thinner, we need to consider that. Also, we need to look at comfort, and method of transfer is really important for children because you want them to be able to be developing their physical skills where possible. So if they are able to do a standing transfer, we want the chair to enable that. Feeding methods important because if they're going to be using the chair for feeding, we need to be considering head position and maximising that ability to swallow, but also get their hands to the mouth and be able to reach the food. If they're tube fed, then we need to be making sure that you can access their peg site or the site of which they're fed through, and no parts of the chair are preventing that. Vision's also important to think about what the child can see from where they're sat, and making sure that people can get objects that they're playing with or they're caring nice and close to them if needed. And also the child's understanding of what they're able to understand and bring to being positioned in the seat. Okay, so we've got a good idea of the child now. Now we need to think about the occupation that they're hoping to use that chair for. So children, this is some of the activities that children do in their everyday life that we'd hope that disabled children will be able to access as well. One chair doesn't necessarily enable them to do all of these occupations. So it's thinking about, especially if you're working in a local authority or NHS service where it's a one chair policy, thinking about maximising the number of activities that they can do from that seat, and thinking about where children play as well, which leads us on to the environment. So in some of these pictures, you can see children playing on the floor, at a table, at a dining table, also kind of being able to get involved in things in the kitchen, washing up, preparing food and things. And is this chair going to be used for educational activities, play or relaxing, and different chairs may suit those activities better, but also parents' perceptions of what the chairs to be used for is also important to consider, and I'll come back to that when we come on to the environment. So the environment which the chairs to be used in. So if you look at these two different environments, you've got a home environment there and a classroom environment, which are the two most common places that I end up prescribing and recommending chairs for. So at the home environment, if you think about an able-bodied child, they'll be playing on the rug, they'll be sat at the sofa, they'll be sat at the breakfast bar, and potentially at the dining table as well, and helping in the kitchen. So ideally you want the child to be able to access as many of those parts of that room as possible, and also access other rooms on the ground floor of the house or the upstairs of the house, or wherever the chair's to be used. And we need to consider the work surfaces that they're going to use the chair up to. Also the floor surfaces, in terms of, is the chair that you're looking at going to be on wheels? Is it going to move easily over the carpet? Or is it going to slip on the laminate floor? So we need to consider those kind of issues. And there are some chairs that can be used both indoors and outdoors, or are just for indoor use, so consider that as well. In the classroom, you can see as well, we've got different surfaces, and it's the similar things that we're considering to the home environment. And generally, the issues in school are around space, and space to get around that child's chair when they're up to a table, and other children to get easy access without it causing a hazard. And also thinking about, is that chair going to be used in other places other than the classroom? So common places are ITC suites, although they're less common now because most classrooms now use laptops with their children, but also dining areas, and what kind of seating and tables do they have in the dining areas that you could use it for. And then moving on to kind of this more social environment, the carers, who's going to be using it, positioning the child in the seat, who's going to be with the child when they're using the chair and pushing the chair around, and does that carer have any physical disability that may need to be considered in the assessment, or might not be classed as a disability but a back pain issue. Height of the carer is also sometimes a factor to take into account. Colour is a big thing for kids and for the parents. So but also, you know, if you work in a statutory service, does your service have requirements for that chair to be a neutral colour that could be reused for a child of a different sex or gender? And also then thinking about the aesthetics of the chair. This is a really important one for parents, because they have they're undergoing a process of dealing with their child's disability often, and sometimes they have things, you know, they really want their child to be the focus rather than the piece of equipment they're sitting in. But also they really want their child to fit in as much as possible. Or, you know, other parents have different things, like it's really important to them that their child can come up to a good height for them to kiss them easily, or put their arm around and hug them. Or they really want their child to be at the same level as other children in the nursery setting. So it's really, really important to get the parents' ideas about what they feel is required in the seating. But also, I mentioned earlier, sometimes the parents really want a chair that looks comfortable. And the idea of a chair for the child, it's really important to kind of talk to them about that what looks comfortable isn't always comfortable, and where possible to give the parent as much of an experience of what it would feel like to sit in that seating where possible, and also talk about how their child's sensory feedback may be different to theirs, and what's comfortable for one person isn't comfortable for another, and how we monitor that and how we can get their child's views on that when they try the seating and when they're using the seating later on. I've put the children in here because, especially in the classroom area, if you've got a child positioned in a seat which then has legs sticking out at the back, you need to be really careful and risk assess that, especially thinking about where that child sits in the classroom. But also in a home environment, some chairs have electronic handsets for rise and recline, and you need to risk assess that as well. Are siblings likely to touch the controls, and may that put both children at risk? And that's the same issue with pets. For rise and recline electronic pieces of equipment, you wouldn't want a pet to be crushed or hurt in the use of the chair. Right, so now moving on to the seating, there are two main groups of seats. So we've got modular seats and molded seats. So modular seats are the ones on the side of your chair where you've got the pink one in the corner, and the slide where you've got the pink one in the corner all the way through to the middle. And you can see they vary a lot in how they look, but also their functions and also the occupations that they're designed to be used for. But what they do have in common is that they're made up of different parts that are there to support the child and meet the child's needs, postural needs, but also that generally these chairs can be grown to a certain degree. So you can make adjustments for growth, and you can make adjustments for the child's posture as it changes. And then on the other side, where you've got the purple seat in the top corner, you've got molded seats. Now these seats are custom made to the child. There's a couple of different options. There's the molded seats, which is the same as the purple one, and then at the bottom you've got a pinky purple and grey one. That one is a foam carved seat, but both of them are made to fit the child's posture. And generally you go for one of these seats if the modular supports off non-modular seat wouldn't provide enough support for the child, and they've got fixed body shape changes that need to be accommodated. The downside of the modular seat, molded seat, sorry, is that they have limited growth and change to them. So they don't grow with the child. You're looking at 12 to 18 months fit. So from a cost point of view, you have to take that into consideration. There are some minor adjustments that you can make to the foam carved ones. You can shave little bits of foam out to make it fit differently if the child slightly gets wider in a certain area. And then I have put a picture in the middle of a seat that kind of fits in the middle. And there's a few of these in the market, but they tend to be more wheelchair seating rather than indoor seating chairs, although there are a few companies that will now put them on an indoor seat base. And these are generally have a modular aspects to them, like the lateral supports and the foot sandals and headrests, but they do have some moulding to the seat that can be changed with little cushions or wedges to really shape the seat and accommodate for any spinal curvatures. So they're a kind of an interim one. Okay, so on modular seating, you have a number of different aspects to consider, and all these bits help you position the child in the most aligned position that you can achieve, but also provide them with the support that they need to do the activity, the occupation that the chair's designed for. So we have footrests and sandals, foot straps and ankle huggers. The seat cushion itself, like in some of those, they might have a well at the back to help prevent the bottom coming forward, or some moulding up between the legs to help support the hip position. Hip belts, they come in quite two main different ones. You have a 2-point hip belt and a 4-point hip belt. So a 4-point hip belt generally pulls backwards as well as down, whereas the 2-point hip belt is just connected to the chair at the 2 points, the left and the right side. Thigh guides are to help position the thighs and keep the hips in a nice aligned position. Some seats have a pommel that fits between the legs. Other seats now starting to see more and more seats with inner thigh guides, which are just like support prompts that fit in between the thighs. The backrest is can be flat or shaped, and also you might want to consider a dynamic backrest, and that's a backrest which has a spring on it. So if the child has extents and patterns of movement and they extend back, then what happens is the spring allows them to extend back, but then brings them back from a more upright position once that extents and spasms eased. Lateral support, so these support under the arms, support the trunk, and you can have ones that wrap round and fasten at the front, or ones that are flat. Big tear-shaped drop ones, there's all kinds of different ones, and you can position them symmetrically, or if the child's not symmetric, then we can offset them a little bit to control that spinal curvature. There's a variety of different chest and shoulder harnesses, and that you should consider the shape of these in particular for young female teens who are developing, and also taking into account any medical devices that the child has, like a peg feed or a baclofen pump, or any drains, so making sure that they're not putting pressure on any areas like that. Some seats have tilt and space and high-low facilities, not always, but that's why we need to consider fatigue, because some children will only be able to tolerate an upright position for a short period of time and may need to be tilted back. Right, I'm aware of time and moving on. So when we then have thought about what support the child needs, what occupation it's going to be used for, what environment it's going to be used for, you might select a few chairs that you might want to try. I always recommend sitting a child in a couple of different chairs, and then we're looking at how that chair supports their position, and we're looking at a good sitting position. So I've just got a few slides here about what I think about. I always start with the pelvic position, because if you get a child's pelvis well supported in a good position, generally that helps you sort both then the lower legs and their trunk and head and arm position. So here we're looking at the pelvis straight. The two red dots are the bony bits on the front of your pelvis. So look at the pelvis from the front. We want those straight to each other and not tilted back or forward. And then from the side, again, we want the pelvis as upright as possible, but not tilted forward or too far back. We look for a 90-90 seating position where possible, and that's where the knees are at 90 degrees with the feet supported with adequate weight to support the femur horizontally. So we want them to be putting some weight through their feet, but also through the bottom and the thighs. Hips should be neutral with knees slightly apart and in line with the hips. And this is, again, what I said is about this is what we want to achieve, but we need to take into account the any child's fixed deformities or contractures, and get as close as we can to this whilst maintaining that comfort and the skin integrity, and their function. And from a spinal point of view, we want to make sure that the natural curves of the spine are supported and they're symmetrical. Then they're not leaning from one side to another, or forwards or backwards. And from the head point of view, just moving my bar, sorry. We're looking for a head in line with the trunk and their chin tucked. And that's really important when we're looking at feeding and breathing. Because children in particular that have low trunk control and low trunk tone, the head is very heavy, and so we don't want their chin on the chest or their ear on the shoulder or looking up to the ceiling, because that makes it really difficult to swallow, and also to control the breathing. And then we want arms and hands. So we want arms forward, hands where they can be seen on the tray or the table and where it's easy for them to reach and grasp things. We don't want arms caught behind the tray or an armrest. And if the child's bringing their arms around and getting them stuck there, we need to be looking at supporting around the shoulders. And what modular seats, some of them have shoulder protractors, which are just little pads that sit behind the shoulders to stop that, or pads on the back of the tray to stop the arm coming behind the tray. In a molded seat, we want to be looking at trying to sort of bring the mold further out to provide that support behind their shoulders. Okay, and then feet should be supported, ideally, and we should have weight going through them, and they should be flat on the foot plate, toes pointing forwards. For children that have got problems with their ankle flexors or extent and toes pointing down, you might want to consider a foot plate that not only goes up and down but is angle adjustable, so we can be sure that we're supporting the whole foot. And when I said feet should be supported, ideally, we want children to be able to move their feet for times, but also there might be times when them moving their feet results in their pelvis moving, and so you want to fix their feet so the pelvis stays fixed and secure. So you want options for them to be able to move, and options also to secure them when we need to. But also sometimes children, if they have an extensor spasm, that they might push through their feet, but then that would cause me to think, rather than take the foot plate away, cause me to think about the position at their hips, and by closing the hips we might be able to reduce that extensor spasm, rather than taking the surface away from the feet. Okay, so that's a quick whiz through. Just a few more slides left. We've got some information here on funding. So once you've decided on your seat that you feel is best meets all those needs that we've talked about, you need to think about how that's going to be funded. Statutory funding, you need to look at your local policies. There may be that you have stock items that you need to consider first. So again, you go through that same process and look what's in stock in stores, and then consider whether that meets the needs or not. And if it doesn't, then you may need to put together a panel request. Charity funding is another option to go down, and if you're working in the private sector, private funding either directly from the client's parents or through a medical legal case. But in all these circumstances, the key to getting a piece of equipment funded is your clinical reasoning. So you need to have really good clinical reasoning about what that seat does in terms of function for the child, in terms of prevention of deterioration, ability for them to feed, where it's going to be used, all the things we've talked about. And that needs to be on that funding application, written in black and white in as much detail as you can. And I normally include both quotes, but making my recommendation for one over the other, based on my clinical reasoning. Okay, and then last slide is aftercare. Once the chair is in place, I think it's really important that that's well monitored. So the instruction book should ideally be with the chair or closely available to it. I normally provide a photo guide to specific positioning instructions required for carers, especially when the chair is going to be used by a variety of carers, and attach that laminated on the back of the chair, so it's there for people to see as a reminder. The carers need to be trained on the seat's functions, like the tilt and space, the high, low, the positioning of the child and how to get the child positioned in it well. The chair is only worth, only going to do its job if the child's positioned well in it. What to do if the child's not positioned well, and what to do if the child's broken, if the chair is broken. And I put that on the photo guide. So if the child's not sat well, then please call DOT, is their number. Or if the chair's broken, then it may be that there'll be an equipment service that could go out and look at that. And then regular reviews to check the fit and make adjustments for growth and posture, and that depends on the child's age, as how regularly that needs to be, but I normally recommend 3 to 6 months. Okay, that was a quick whiz through. I'm just about at the right time, so I'll say goodbye and hand that back over, and I look forward to your questions at the end.
Thank you so much, Eve. That was really, really insightful. So just a reminder to all, please pop your questions in the chat and we will discuss them at the end during our Q&A. So for now, we are going to hand over to our in-house seating assessor, Ben Sterling, and he'll be using a little Lento care chair to demonstrate what some of the functionalities we've discussed look like, and how they can support young clients. So over to you, Ben.
Thank you for that, Braden. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for taking the time to be with us today. Just need one person, just a quick thumbs up to make sure you can hear me okay. Just a little well, there we go. Fantastic. Thank you, Alice. You were there first. Right. So yes, that is my job. I'm here to just run through this particular chair. For those who don't know me, you've never met me before, my name's Ben Sterling. I am the lead seating assessor here at Vivid Care. I've been doing what I do now for 5 and a bit years, if time flies when you're having fun or when you're working for Vivid. Big thank you to Eve, first and foremost, for running through her presentation there. It makes my job so much easier to explain. I can just draw off what's been said. We're going to look through the Lento. Now, what Eve mentioned there is absolutely right in terms of the chairs and the different types of options. This particular chair we're looking at today is a modular chair, okay? So bearing in mind what Eve explained around that, this is what the little Lento is, okay? We've got an awful lot of adjustment in the chair, and it's there for a purpose. It's there for to provide as much support and as much flexibility to not only give the best postural support to the individual in the chair, but also to give them the most out of the life they have. So if they need to, if they're quite active in their home and they want to be moving from living room to kitchen, or if they want to be doing different activities, then we need to have a chair that's going to fit that lifestyle, that's going to actually fulfill a number of things. So my role on a day-to-day basis will generally consist of going out with an occupational therapist, just getting an understanding of what they're looking for, what they want the chair to achieve, and then I will look to provide a seat that will fit within those guidelines, basically. Okay, so within this care chair, this is primarily for people that are hoisted. So going back to the mobility side of things, it will fit certain individuals if they are able to stand. But as you can see from the chair, it is on wheels, it is mobile, it is raised from the floor. So it is primarily for those that mobility-wise, they aren't necessarily walking around on their own. They may be hoisted, they may need some sort of stand aid or some sort of equipment to actually help them get them in and out of a chair. Okay, now going back to the modular side of things with this chair, what we've designed or what we've looked at within this is just the ability to grow with the individual, to provide adjustment where needed. So if you're sat there, you've got all your ducks in a row, you're looking at a chair, you want it to be long lasting, then the chair needs to adjust and grow with the child, okay? So as a start for this one, we have got a number of levels of adjustment. We have got to start with, I'll just come to the back here, we've got our seat depth adjustment. So you can see from that, you can pick and choose how far back or how far forward you want to have that chair. And once you're happy with that, you can set that, lock it into place. So straight away we can get the right sort of proportions seat depth wise on that chair without the need of any tools. We've also got width adjustment as well. So there's a hand screw at the back. Just by moving or loosening that hand screw, finding the appropriate width, you can then set that, lock it off and get where you need to go with that. If you needed to as well, you can also adjust the arm height on the chair. So 2 pull pins either side. You then just pick where you want it to be, pop that back into place there. Okay, so you can see from that you've got, we've adjusted that one slightly higher than the other one, but you can chop and change it as and when you need to. Moving down to the foot plate as well. Again, as Eve said, we want to have a good contact with the foot. We don't want to be putting too much pressure through the feet. We want to be aiming for that 90-90 in terms of how the feet are and how they are in the chair. And so we've got a foot plate here that we can actually adjust the height with, or we can, bringing it down or bringing it up, depending on where we need to. And we can also adjust the angle, which again was mentioned there. Just opening up the angle will ensure, if we've got a bit of plantar flexion, that we're catching that foot correctly. If we need to bring it a bit further forward, we can do as well. We've got different sort of flexibility within that. We've also got a nice articulating leg rest there to follow the extension of the leg, and some good channels as well on either side here that will just keep that good line that was mentioned earlier. So we want to make sure we've got a nice even pelvis at the back of the chair, nice line with the knees, with the feet, and ultimately with the shoulders as well if we can when we're actually fully in the chair. Okay. So we've got adjustable width, adjustable depth, adjustable arm height, adjustable foot plate height and angle. And we've got our elevating legs there that we can do. Now this particular chair as well also comes with tilting space. So it was mentioned again by Eve there that tilting space, it's very much something that is needed for someone that may not be able to hold themselves up for long periods of time. They might need that extra support. They might need to change their position throughout the day. What this ensures, what tilting space ensures, is that we're getting a good postural position. So the pelvis is nicely straight, legs are nice and straight in there, the feet are nicely supported. But rather than keeping them upright, which they might not be able to achieve on their own for any length of period, we can actually tilt it back, and it will just ensure that the pressure is spread throughout a wider surface area. And we are catching them in the chair. Gravity is actually working in our favour to ensure that they're supported and they're comfortable in the seating position that they're in. We do also have back angle adjustment on this as well. I don't tend to promote it too much, because if you recline too much in these kind of chairs, it can turn into a bit of a slide and people can find themselves slipping down the chair, which we obviously do not want. When it comes to kids as well, there's an awful lot of extras that we need to consider. So it's what we actually want the chair to achieve. Again, Eve mentioned that before. Do we want the chair to be something that is going to be corrective, something that's going to actually keep them in a good postural position, quite strict, quite rigid? If so, we can do that with this. A few accessories to add, but we can achieve that. Or are they wanting something that's a little bit more comfortable, end of the day, want to relax, want want to watch TV, want to do certain activities, want to ensure that we're actually, just getting a bit of enjoyment out of it, able to relax at the end of a long day, in which case we won't be doing as much to ensure that they're strictly rigid in their posture. You can see from this chair there are certain things in there that actually encourage a good posture, but they're not necessarily the firm, harsh things that we would maybe look at considering if we were wanting to maintain and correct. So we can do firm laterals on the side, for example. We can do chest harnesses and lap belts. We can do ankle huggers and things as well if we need to, just to kind of keep the legs in a nice strict position. But it's whether you want to go that far with this. We would generally be led by the OT. What does the child need? What are they wanting to actually get from the chair itself? Just a couple of accessories. If we wanted to promote good posture, this is one thing. You can see, I don't know if you can see that very well there. You might want to get a different cushion to go in place. It was mentioned there about having a bit of a well at the back and having some pressure relief within it. You can do that with this. These cushions do come off and you just basically swap it out for one that you wanted to put in. If you didn't want the laterals at all, you could just go with a standard cushion here, just to give a bit more comfort, a bit more support. Just pop that one in instead. We've got different ways of looking at it. And if you want them to have something where they can do some activities, maybe they want to play on the laptop, maybe they want to eat, maybe they want to actually watch a bit of TV or have some food on there. I'll just move this one up a bit. Then we can look at putting a food tray in place as well. Does one of two things. It keeps them, obviously ensures that they can do their activities within the chair, but it also actually maintains a good postural support as well, just around their trunk, and ensures that their hands are up and in a good safe position there as well. So there's a few extra, quite a lot of accessories that you can add, but the good thing about this chair and the modular nature that it has is that you can pick and choose what you need from this. We can put pommels in, we can add extra cushioning if we need to in certain parts. Sky's the limit really. We're really led by the individual. It's something that is easy to tailor compared to other chairs where they don't have that sort of modular nature to it. And lastly, probably most importantly, it was mentioned about colour. We have a wide range of colours when it comes to these chairs. I've done bright pink ones, I've done bright red ones, blue ones, whatever you fancy. Favourite football team, whatever you want to do, we can do that with this. Again though, it also, on the other side of this, we've had lots of parents making suggestions. They want to match their sofa that they've just bought. They want to match, the same sort of look and feel of the lazy boy that the dad's in. We can do that, we can chop and change, and we're very much happy to do so, because at the end of the day, as Braden said at the beginning of this video, our mission is really to just enhance the lives of the individuals that we're seeing. We're flexible in how we approach things, and you kind of have to be. You can't really push one thing because it's not a one size fits all, as has been made quite clear from what Eve's gone through today. But as a chair, this is a really good piece of kit. It's something that makes a world of difference to a lot of people, and the benefits are there to see. The good thing as well, if conditions change with something like this chair, the modular nature also ensures that you can add bits at the end of the, further down the line. Maybe they get the chair at 7 years old and they're now 12. We've adjusted the depth, we've adjusted the arm height, we've chopped and changed everything that we need to within the chair, but perhaps they need a little bit more head support, perhaps they need a bit more around the lateral side of things. You're not buying a whole new chair, you're then going in and you're going, right, well, we'll add a lateral to this side, we'll adjust this head cushion here, we'll swap out a few cushions, we'll tweak something here. We've got different things that we can do straight from this chair, and we're not having to disrupt everything, we're not having to move things around, we're very much just adapting what we've already got, which from a funding point of view makes a ton of sense and a lot more justifiable in the long run. And then as they grow out of this, we also do have an adult version of the same chair, so that person's life is not then disrupted even more by, I had a great chair as a kid and now I'm struggling. You've got the same sort of idea in an adult sense as well. So we're really trying to set up the longevity within these chairs and think about everything that somebody might well need. That is pretty much me, to be honest, Braden. I'll pass you back over.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Ben. That's very helpful. So there's been a couple of questions on the chat, which we'll just have a quick Q&A session now, if that's all right. So the first one, which has come through, actually a couple of people have already replied to in the chat, so thanks very much for that, for sharing experience of what we wanted to do, just share experience and resources. But it's, does anyone know of any charities in the Northwest who are assisting with funding? So we do actually have a charities database on our website, so I can share that with you afterwards, Leanne. And that's got a whole list of different charities which you can reach out to for funding. But then Eve, Ben, I'm not sure if you've got any recommendations on that, or whether it's perhaps something we can come back to Leanne on.
I noticed a few people have put there's New Life. I'd recommend them. I've used them before. I'd also think about local Rotary clubs. Is something else that generally can be used. I'm trying to think if it's really hard when you put on the spot. But yes, I think New Life is a good one to start with. And from an OT point of view, they have nurse advisors where you can ring up and have a chat with them and explain, and they're really good at communicating with ourselves as OTs in supporting that as well.
Brilliant, thank you very much. We've then got another question. Are there any good options for floor sitting apart from tumble form corner chair? For little people who spend quite a bit of time on the floor with their school chums.
Okay, so I've had a little think about this. There's the go-to seat, which is from Firefly, and they also have a bath seat as well called the Splashy. So those two seats both can be used for floor sitting. The Splashy is probably and can be used outdoors. So the Splashy is a good option for the beach as well. So that's a nice one. Or for nursery settings where they have like paddling pools and stuff out. So they're two other options, but can also be used. The go-to can also be used when families go away on holiday as well, for sitting in a dining room type chair or in a swing. The corner seat options, there's the Jenks and the Smurthwaite ones. The Special Tomato is an alternative for the tumble floor form, similar kind of shape thing that can be fitted on a low wheeled base. Or there's high-low chairs, some of which now go really low to the floor. So if it's a child which needs a bit more postural support, have a look at those high-low chairs. For example, the Schuckman Medita Fun Mini, or I think some of the Jenks ones go very low as well. So there's a few options there.
Brilliant, thank you very much, Eve. So I'm not sure if anyone else has got any questions before we just move on to the last couple of slides and finish off. Feel free to pop them on the chat, or otherwise unmute. And again, if anyone thinks of any questions afterwards, after the webinar, please feel free to drop an email to myself. I'm Braden. I sent you all an email before, just with the webinar reminder, so feel free to reach out to me, and we'll come back to you with answers to questions and recommendations. This might be one for you, Ben. There's one coming in from Cheryl. Do you have a range of bath seats?
Sorry there, Braden, you just broke up. Do I have a range of
bath seats?
Bath seats, unfortunately, not me personally. We might be able to do something within one of our sister companies, Aqueduct. If you send me some information through of what you're looking for, I'll be able to point you in the right direction.
Right, I will make a note to come back to you on that one then, Cheryl. One of our sister companies within the group should be able to help. Good. Well, I don't want to take up too much of people's time, so there's just one more thing which I thought might be useful for you to use, which we can offer for when you're doing assessments. So we've got a whole range of resources on our website, but one of the ones which we've got, which is available to download, is this seating assessment form. So basically, you can use it as a checklist and a place to take down notes when you're completing seating assessments, and it will bring you through all the things to take into consideration when you're going through your assessment. So it doesn't matter whether you prefer to print it off and fill it out there and then with a pen or pencil, or you could just have it on your phone and do it there. It's just there to be a supportive document for you. And then you can obviously bring that back and the information, have accurate notes on all the different relevant points, and make sure that nothing's missed when you are looking for that seating later on. There's a lot of other free resources we have on our website, so please do go and check that out. We've got ebooks about specialist seating, justification forms when you're trying to secure funding, templates which you can use, seating prescription forms. We've got lots of training videos and past webinar recordings as well. We've got a blog which we post on every week, and then obviously if you go onto the our resources part of our website, you can get access to future webinars and CPD courses as well. So future webinars, episode 3 of our course is going to be open for registration soon. So you will be able to register for that by the end of today. And that will be about mastering seating assessment for people with dementia. So you can see there, we've got a list of various different episodes coming up. But the dementia episode is coming up in April. That's going to be on April the 30th at 1:30 again in the afternoon. Other than that, thank you again very much to everyone for joining. Again, please do reach out if you have any questions. We will send out the recording and a copy of the slides this afternoon. So that will come out in a couple of hours, along with a link to a feedback form. We really want your feedback on these webinars so we can make improvements for future episodes. Thank you again very much and have a wonderful rest of your afternoon. And thank you, Eve, very much for your time this afternoon as well.
Thank you, everyone.